Getting us started today, we'll be hearing from Barry Hensley, Senior Vice President and Chief Threat Intelligence Officer for Secureworks. He's going to get things started and share more of what you can expect from the summit. He's here with me physically, which is a treat for me to have someone in my virtual environment. How are you?
Julie, it's so great to see you in person, and thank you so much for moderating today's session. I know you're going to ensure our success, to ensure our audience and our teammates get the most out of these discussions today.
That is my job. I promise I'll do it the best that I can. So it's really nice to have you. Of course, you're going to give a bit of an opening keynote address, and then you're going to speak to the brilliant Matt Hartman. So without further ado, I'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone, to our Secureworks 7th Annual Threat Intelligence Summit. It's great to be back in person with our incredible team. And as you can see, we've gone to a hybrid model this year with a mix of a virtual audience and presenters alongside the teammates that are actually in the UK with me as well in the studio. We consider this our flagship event for the year for sharing our latest threat research with the security community at large. It's actually designed purposely to highlight our latest insights about threat actors, their common tradecraft and tactics, and while also outlining our recent lessons learned from real-world incident response engagements. So whether you're a Chief Information Security Officer, a SOC analyst, or security researcher, we believe that we have great content that you will benefit from. I am also very blessed every day that I get an opportunity to learn from the Secureworks cybersecurity experts. Today's summit really represents the vast knowledge of those collective teams. So part of the agenda today, you'll hear about the most prevalent nation-state activity to include Russian cyber capabilities in light of the invasion of Ukraine. And the team also has some unique insights about China and Iran state-sponsored threats and are blurring the lines between espionage and cybercrime. And you can't have this conversation today without talking about the #1 threat that faces our customers, and that's actually ransomware. And so finally, our own TJ Nelson will share how we will leverage the power of the Secureworks Taegis XDR platform to better protect our customers through advanced analytics and machine learning. These are just some of the highlights of the action-packed agenda that Julia talked about earlier. We truly believe that it's part of our mission to help secure human progress. And that mission, I think we'd all agree, requires you to have a trusted security partner. You just can't do this by yourself today. And working together to protect the businesses that fuel our economies and our critical infrastructure. And to do that, we also know that you need to partner with the very best government and law enforcement organizations as well. We are very fortunate to be joined today with several of those key trusted public partners that are in the community. And as Julia mentioned earlier, our keynote today is actually with Matt Hartman, who is CISA's Deputy Executive Assistant Director for Cybersecurity. And like CISA, we Secureworks believe that the partnership between the public and private sector is a critical piece of the cybersecurity puzzle. I hope each of you get tremendous value out of the collective sharing of the information today. So with that, if we could, I think Matt was going to join us for a set of discussions. Matt, it's so great to see you. I appreciate you dialing in. I know you got a lot of moving parts going on, but on behalf of Secureworks and the security industry at large, we want to thank you and your team and all the things that you do and the leadership as well.
Thank you, Barry. Really good to be here today.
So Matt, we've kind of primed the pump a little bit. We actually reached out to those participants today, and I'm going to go old school on you in this case. And we had initially very interested in, and we can take this conversation any direction you'd like to go. But one thing that's top of mind with them, knowing that CISA has so many responsibilities across the globe, is how do you balance the priorities of focusing your efforts around the nation-state threat actors, which are more strategic in nature and often, versus the more tactical fight that we face day in and day out from a cyber criminal perspective? We'd love to get your thoughts on that point.
Awesome. Thank you, Barry. Great question. First, for those who are not super familiar with CISA, I'd love to just quickly give an overview of who we are and what we do. So CISA stands for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We are one of the newest agencies in the federal government, and we are housed within the Department of Homeland Security. So our mission at CISA, in the simplest of terms, is to protect the nation's critical infrastructure from cyber and physical threats. So with that, it is our responsibility to protect the functions that are so vital to the United States that their disruption, their corruption, or their dysfunction would have a debilitating effect on national security, economic security, public health, or public safety. So really, these services, they include the water we drink, the electricity that lights our homes, the ability to get money out of an ATM, the ability to get gas at the pump or food at the grocery store. On the cyber side of the house, I like to describe our mission as having three primary focus areas. So first, we collaborate with partners ranging from international governments to federal agencies to state and local, tribal and territorial government organizations and the private sector to actively defend cyberspace and to help the nation respond to significant cyber incidents. Second, we build resilience by addressing systemic risk and really by helping organizations, particularly those organizations who are performing national critical functions, operate safely and reliably in a complex and ever-changing cyber threat landscape. And finally, we set the conditions that contribute to the vitality and the health of the cyber ecosystem, and we really partner with industry to achieve those conditions. So our aim at CISA is to be the front door for the critical infrastructure community to work with before, during, and after incidents, really to help build the security and the resilience of our nation through collective cyber defense. I'm proud of the progress that we've made as a community in recent years. We are certainly not done, but I'm thrilled to be here today with one of our partners, with Secureworks, to discuss some of the ways that we can strengthen our partnerships to ensure the resilience of our nation's most critical functions. In terms of your question, Barry, about managing and balancing long-term strategic threats from hostile actors versus ongoing tactical threats from criminal groups and ransomware groups, it's a great question. It is one that we are forced to confront every day, and it is one that likely everybody on this call is forced to confront every day in terms of thinking how to prioritize finite time and resources. In this line of work, as I'm sure many of you can attest to, it is really easy to get sucked into the tactical and operational work at the expense of really more impactful strategic work. So one advantage that we have going for us in confronting this question is that the work that we are doing every day with our partners and stakeholders to build security and resilience into our nation's most critical systems and function, it adds friction and it makes it more challenging for both sophisticated state-sponsored actors as well as opportunistic criminal groups from reaching their objectives. A lot of the work that CISA did in the lead up to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, really serving as the coordinating element of the U.S. government, from the guidance we provided to the services that we offered, it was useful to defending against ransomware as it was to defending against APT. So that is, on the positive side. We are always going to be on the front lines at CISA, collaborating with partners to defend cyberspace, to respond to nationally significant incidents. But I'll take your question one step further. If our sole focus is on putting out today's fires, whether those are fires created by sophisticated APTs or ransomware gangs, we are never going to get ahead of the progress that we really need to make as a community. We need to build capacity and capability in our partners and really serve as an enabler and a driver of cyber risk reduction nationally. We need to incentivize and drive organizations to prioritize security, to make network devices more secure out of the box. And quite frankly, we need to ensure that a decade from now that we have the right national cyber workforce with the right diversity and the right makeup who can really carry the baton and continue building on the cybersecurity community's recent tremendous progress. The theory to us is pretty simple. If we as a community can identify and prioritize medium and long-term risks, we can collectively focus on them to ensure that they are addressed. It's not going to be easy. It is going to require collaborative planning with critical infrastructure owners and operators. It's going to require tremendous dedication and commitment because many of these risks that we are facing today are longstanding and they are deep-rooted. It's also going to require us to deepen our ties with international partners. So while CISA is focused on the security of domestic critical infrastructure, we know that cybersecurity is inherently an international mission. So, we are fully committed to strengthening collaboration with all of our partners on this call today, both foreign and domestic, public and private sector, to really enable a common understanding of cyber risk and then work together to address and to identify the steps that we can collectively take to address it.
So Matt, it was one interesting thing that I want to pull a thread on a little bit was the tremendous role that you and your team has had in bringing the entire security community together from a coordination perspective, an intelligence sharing perspective. But now, most recently, there's been the legislation around, and I'm going to use the term, at least the community, mandatory reporting, and how that ultimately is going to impact this audience. And I think there's some confusion there. And I think we both agree that we can't be successful without sharing those insights. But at the same time, you can imagine there's some reservations associated with what the potential impact of those organizations, knowing that they'd expose some of their own risk, but also maybe some of their own impact as well. Can you, for the audience perspective, you kind of clarify what do you think that legislation is really about and how they should think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And, we are committed to getting out there on the circuit to make sure that we are clearing up all of this confusion. So really appreciate the opportunity to address this audience. First, from our perspective at CISA, and more broadly within the U.S. government, the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act of 2022, it really is a game changer. Not just for us, but for the entire cybersecurity community and everyone invested in protecting our nation's critical infrastructure. It will allow us, and in this instance, by us, I mean the U.S. government writ large, to understand the threats that we are facing, to spot adversary campaigns earlier, to take more coordinated action with both public and private sector partners in response. So, we can't defend what we don't know about. The information that we receive pursuant to this legislation will help us fill critical information gaps that really will inform the guidance that we share with the entire community, ultimately to make sure that all of you are able to protect your own organizations and collectively the nation against cyber threats. So a little bit about where we are with the legislation and the rollout. Last month, we published a request for information and a notice of public listening sessions. We are really soliciting public input on the right approach to take here in terms of implementing both the cyber incident and ransom payment reporting requirements. So during the rulemaking process, we are extraordinarily committed to providing stakeholders from across the spectrum an opportunity to provide ideas, to provide perspectives, within the limitation of the rulemaking process and timeline. We look forward to learning from our partners in critical infrastructure through our RFI and our coast-to-coast listening sessions. We want to understand how we can implement this legislation in the most effective way to protect the nation's critical infrastructure, but not bog organizations down as they are in the early stages of responding to an incident. So, that is at a high level, Barry, where we are. Happy to elaborate on any of those pieces if useful.
Just how committed that CISA is to the community at large. And a number of times through the discussion to this point, you've used the word help. And ironically enough, one of the questions is, what resources are available, knowing that organizations today just can't defend the magnitude of threats that are out there by themselves. They obviously got to partner with others to go do that based upon the experience they bring to the fight. But can you talk about various resources or initiatives that CISA has, like Shields Up maybe, that may be useful to the community at large?
Absolutely, happy to. And another great question. So I will bucket the resources that CISA offers into two primary areas. So first, we are actively collaborating every day with our partners, from international to U.S. government to SLTT to domestic private sector organizations to unify and provide actionable cybersecurity guidance out into the ecosystem to enable network defenders to prioritize actions and mitigations. This is our most scalable work. It is a line of effort that we are intensely focused on improving and growing. The second bucket is, we provide a wide array of voluntary cybersecurity services to critical infrastructure stakeholders. And I would emphasize the word voluntary because everything that we do at CISA is based on partnership. We are not a cybersecurity regulator. These services, they range from our cyber hygiene scanning service for internet-facing system. It's basically an automated remote scan that provides a report identifying vulnerabilities and mitigation recommendations so organizations can improve the cybersecurity of their internet-connected systems. We also offer in-depth on-site evaluations that really involve a system-wide understanding of vulnerabilities and weaknesses. We provide a full report of vulnerabilities and recommendations following that evaluation. And what we are really looking to do, Barry, and what I'd love to highlight is that many of the services that we offer as CISA, and this will be increasing in coming years, are provided through our regional staff. This is a model that we are looking to further as it's really the only way that we are going to be able to scale as we bolster our regional teams. As of today, we have regional staff located across the country supporting all 56 states and territories. They can help organizations understand really what are the most relevant and useful services that CISA offers based on that organization's unique function and unique risk. If you haven't worked with our regional staff yet, I encourage all of you to reach out and get connected with members of the team. You can visit cisa.gov/CISA-regions and get connected that way. But really, given that many of our services are not fully scalable, we are keenly focused on ensuring that we are providing the right service to the right partner at the right time. And these regional resources can really work to identify and really align the most appropriate services to organizations. To touch briefly on Shields Up resources, since you mentioned Shields Up, these really fall into both buckets. We are using Shields Up, cisa.gov/shields-up, to signal and help organizations prioritize actions and mitigations based on intelligence that we are seeing, both through the intelligence community as well as our private sector partners. So in the lead up to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we put up this webpage. We have guidance for corporate leaders and CEOs. We have guidance for network defenders. We have very tactical mitigation guidance that we're updating, products with the most relevant Russia-related IOCs and TTPs. We have guidance for small businesses, but we're also leveraging Shields Up to share things like our known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, which can help organizations prioritize their patch management programs. We also have a catalog of free public sector and private sector cybersecurity tools and services that we have crowdsourced and offer on our website that organizations can take advantage of, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, to really raise their security and resilience.
And I've got a lot of questions that have came in, but I'm actually going to skip to the last one I have, and that's the one, clearly you ought to be very proud of the JCDC partnership that was created, right? The Joint Cyber Defense Collaboration Initiative, which we Secureworks are very proud member of. So now we've come up, I think, on almost the first year of that. We're about to go into the second year. What do you see as the major focus areas around that program in the next 12 months?
Great question. And it is, to your point, one that we are extraordinarily proud of and committed to continuing to improve in the coming years. So, the theory of the JCDC is that protecting the nation's critical infrastructure is going to require a whole of society approach. And through, CISA's mission, through the JCDC, this is really our avenue to showing up to work every day to actively collaborate with both government and industry partners. I think just to touch on a couple of highlights for those who are not familiar with the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, a couple of activities from the first year, we really believe that this is a great approach and a great initiative that is helping foster a secure and resilient ecosystem. A couple of areas in the first year, we leveraged a whole of community, we leveraged the JCDC to really build a whole of community response to the Log4Shell vulnerability. So, within hours on that Friday afternoon in December, we had convened the nation's largest ISPs, CSPs, infrastructure and cybersecurity providers, and established a platform to share intelligence in real time. Within a few days, we had established a platform to serve as the authoritative source on the vulnerability and we really took collective action to mitigate the associated risk to the nation, really serving as that one place internationally that organizations in that cybersecurity personnel could come to identify whether a product was vulnerable to Log4 Shell. A couple months later, through the JCDC, we developed a Russia-Ukraine tensions plan with both private and public sector partners. It laid out the phases and objectives of operational coordination between the U.S. government and the private sector amidst escalating geopolitical tensions. For this year's midterm elections, we have stood up a Slack channel with both interagency and industry partners to facilitate real-time communication and collaboration around threats to election infrastructure. So this just shows, the power of the JCDC. It is not just CISA. It is CISA with our closest U.S. government partners, with the FBI, with the NSA, with U.S. Cyber Command, with DOJ, and with all of you, with the private sector who has such tremendous visibility into threats that are potentially going to impact our nation. So transitioning briefly to what's next, and I want to be mindful of time, there are really three areas of focus for this coming year. The first is collaborative planning. One of the JCDC's priorities is to lead the development of the nation's cyber defense plans by working across, again, both public and private sectors to unify deliberate and crisis action planning. To put it more simply, if we are always just putting out today's fires, we will never get ahead. So we are really looking to leverage the JCDC to build rigor and structure against whole-of-nation cyber defense planning. The second piece is information fusion. And when we talk about information sharing, we know that it needs to evolve. It needs to move past a passive transfer of information to really an active dialogue, to a this is the information, pay attention, take action type of dialogue. And the JCDC operating model, it really relies on regular analytic and data exchanges with the private sector to enable common situational awareness and understanding. So we need to bolster this capability over the next year and really ensure that the resulting information equips our nation to make risk-based, risk-informed prioritization decisions. And finally, the third and final core function that we're going to focus on this year is, again, I already touched on this briefly, but cybersecurity guidance and dissemination. So through the JCDC construct, we've been able to develop and disseminate timely and actionable cybersecurity publications. At CISA, we are extraordinarily focused on improving the quality and setting, meeting and expanding industry standards for these type of publications. We are hopeful that in the future we can move away entirely from single seal products coming out of U.S. government agencies. We want to really focus on multi-seal products that leverage the expertise of the U.S. government as well as industry to provide the best-in-breed products out to the market that can really help organizations mitigate threats and vulnerabilities. So I know we were short on time, but wanted to make sure I touched on some of the highlights for next year.
Well, thank you for your service to not only to the United States, but to the global security community. And also, if you could pass on to Jen Easterling how much we appreciate her partnership as well. You couldn't ask for a better leader with CISA, but also she's building a phenomenal team. And she has done so much to strengthen the global partnership with that community as well. And so thanks, Matt. We appreciate the time. Look forward to connecting with you in the future. And we look forward to the tremendous partnership as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're proud to have Secureworks as a partner. Have a great day.
I love that, Barry. Thank you for facilitating that conversation. And I really liked what Matt's sentiment was there about. It's really important to connect and to use this event as an opportunity to do so with all the important partners that are, I'm sure, in the delegation today. Barry, thank you for such a wonderful way for kicking us off.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
Of course.